Hey everyone. So today I would like to highlight a couple of my favorite fandom authors. And I was hoping to originally have five for this list, but so far I only have four that fit the criteria that I am looking for, which is, stories that I have enjoyed, writers whose style I like, and who, at least in my experience, every single book has been knocking it out of the park, at least for me. These are people that I would recommend to anyone interested in furry literature, either reading or writing. I would put them as a highly recommended reading list. People to emulate, people to watch. These are just books and authors that I have zero reservations about saying that this is extremely high up there in terms of what the furry fandom has to offer and the things that you should be looking at. And I'd like to start with Utunu, which Utunu is the author of a book called Rafts. I know he's working on some other projects, sci-fi that I was told of, but I haven't had a chance to see any of it yet. But I would say that Utunu, has a really good talent for making kind of what I would call almost slow burn stories, because Rafts is a story about two characters, Shima and Kunet, who end up stranded on an island, and other than a few brief interactions with some other people that make it to the same island, it's really just the study between the relationship of these two characters. And it's Utunu prefers to do, I think, like tribal kind of settings that it's very intimate, it's very enjoyable, and for a story that takes its time getting where it's going, it's one of those ones where you really enjoy looking at the scenery. And I would say that Utunu's strengths is definitely like really good characterization of pacing, that he really has a good grasp on making these characters endearing. And although I only have the first book to go on, this is a book that when I reached the end, even though I knew what was coming, it's like I had to tell him, it's like I had to put it down for a little bit because I knew that the last two chapters were going to be hard on me. And this is like for a book to really just like hit that hard, it's a talent, and it's a talent to be appreciated. And this is a book that I would strongly recommend be on everybody's reading list, because this was just a spectacular piece throughout. And it's like I talk to Utunu on a fairly regular basis. I don't know if I'd go so far as saying we're friends. I mean, I kind of appreciate his conversation, and it's like I would like to think we are. But, I know I always feel weird about saying that, on behalf of other people. But I can just say that in any event, the author is very friendly, that he's very good at what he does. And I really think that he's got a lot of good insights for some of my work that I've shown him. And overall, I would say that if you are looking for something, kind of casual and low key, and a strong piece of literary enjoyment, that Rafts is definitely something that I think you should take a look into. Now, the second author that I would like to talk about is Kyell. To most of you, you probably already know the name pretty well. He's one of the most famous and well-known fandom authors out there, I think, and there's a good reason for that. He's a very skilled writer. He does a lot of different series, a lot of different settings. I know he's putting out a lot of work pretty much still consistently now, even after however long, because he was one of the first names that I remember reading in furry, that I remember picking up at a con. And I started with Volle, which was his first book. And I have to admit that it's like Volle, I couldn't tell if it was his first book, even though I knew it was. But it was a really good book that kind of grew out of a short story, I think. And it, was about a fox that's doing some espionage in a royal court of some sort. And I remember it being really good. It was one of those books that had a late story twist that just completely took me by surprise. And that is something that I always look for in a really good book. That is something that I really appreciate, and if done well, it is one of those things that really makes your book stick in my memory, and this is one of those. Um, I've also read a couple of his other books that followed after that. I read, the first one, Out of Position, football themed book that was about a Tiger footballer who sort of gets into a relationship with a fox that, you know, it's one of those things where it's just kind of like, in the hyper masculine world of football, it's like, can you get along with being gay? And this was kind of one of those things that's like, I remember I really enjoyed the book itself, even though I didn't know anything about football. It made the topic pretty accessible so that I understood it, at least insofar as the story was concerned. I will admit that at a certain point, I kind of got a little bit disenfranchised with the concept that 90%, if not all, of Kyell's pieces are about people learning that they're gay, or people discovering that about themselves. And not that that's inherently bad, but I just kind of, at least at the point that I had this kind of thought, I was kind of thinking, I like to see that authors have variation in their techniques, and this was something that was a constant, which I will say though that it is always well done, and that he always does a really good job, and it kind of makes me want to read some of the rest of the stuff, even though I now know that it's all kind of his thing. But again, this is what you go for when you look for a Kyell Gold book. It's part of the package. It's a feature, not a bug. So it's just one of those things that I would say that the plot always makes it relevant. The plot always justifies its inclusion, and I give him lots of credit for being writing a lot of LGBTQ fiction that definitely needs a lot more attention, definitely needs a lot more books out there for people to read. And it's in no way is a negative. This is just something that, at least for at the time anyway, I just started to notice a pattern, and I was just kind of I don't know, patterns. I usually try and avoid them because it seems to me like that can also be a sign of a one-trick pony. But I would also like to say that Kyell Gold is in no way a one-trick pony. It's just something he prefers to do, which I can appreciate and respect. And I think that it really comes across really well done. So, he's got like sports themes, he's got fantasy themes. I don't know if there's anything else, but he is one of the most well-known names in furry writing for a reason. I would highly recommend reading his stuff. Recently I had the opportunity to read a book called Shadow of the Father, which was like the fourth book, I think, in his Argaea series, maybe the fifth. And I hadn't read a Kyell Gold book in forever, but it had been sitting on my shelf for years, and I was like, I should finally read this damn thing. So, I went and read it, and it's like, as always, it was just like, it was a great experience, great read. Made great use of the furry setting. It was definitely what I would consider, a heavily furry book. Had to do with like foxes and mice and a little bit of racism, and a little bit of a young character trying to find his way, and it was really good. It's like I really enjoyed it, and I highly recommend it if you can get your hands on it. Shadow of the Father is really good, and as far as Kyell Gold, it's like I've interacted with him a couple of times at a con. I wouldn't say we really know each other, but it's like I would highly recommend that this is one of those strong writers that I would recommend that you read if you haven't already. The third author that I would like to talk about is Tempe Okun, and I know that I originally started reading the Sixes Wild books at a couple of MFFs like a long time ago. Well, maybe not a long time ago, but a while back in any case. And I don't think I really knew the name very well at the time. But, Sixes Wild was like a Western story with a rabbit gunslinger. I forget if she's like a rabbit, a hare or something. And some sort of lagomorph in any case. But the thing, is that, Six, and she gets entangled with a lawbat. I can't remember his name right now, but it was a really good story. It had a lot of good humor. It had a lot of interesting things. It has a guy in a dress. It's like, I remember, again, it was also one of those books that took very good use of the multi-species setting. It was an enjoyable read, as was the sequel. I remember the first one was one of those ones that, had like a couple of POV jumps, between the two main characters, which really worked out well. I liked the second one. I don't remember too much about it offhand. I know I read it. I know it's been a couple of years, so forgive me. But I do recall it was leading into what I hope eventually becomes the third book, which I am looking forward to with a lot of interest because it seems like there's been there's an arc definitely building in this series that I can't wait to see how it resolves. Um, Also, the Windfall series, which I know is sort of an interesting well that I don't think's ever been tapped before. It's like these two characters that used to be regulars on a sort of sci-fi or I don't know, fantasy sort of creepy thing adventure show, um, and they get together in their hometown, and it's like this otter and this husky that kind of get involved again after so much time, and she kind of has a crush on him, and it's like whereas you go for Kyell for homosexual relationships, Tempe really does good with the hetero relationships, and this is one of those things that the adult pieces, the adult parts of the book, it's like they're really integrated well in the story. It's like I don't really have a problem with adult writing. It's like I have come across quite a few that I really enjoyed it, but usually I don't like porn just for porn's sake. And it has to be like characters that I can feel it with them, that I can understand why that these two characters are involved. And Tempe and Kyell, they both do a really good job of that. It's like the sex isn't just there for the sake of it being there. These characters, it's like their romance is part of the story. It's like you really feel it, you get it, and it's done well. And I really like that. And in the case of Windfall and Six's Wild, it's like they're interesting back and forth between the two characters, and the relationships are really just so well done and so stellar, and the stories are both strong, well involved plots that just kind of really just interested me from the start. They're especially like with Tempe, they're like two ideas, two concepts that I just don't see that often done in a way that I like. It's like it's hard to get me to like westerns, and I would like to say that Six is Wild does a really good job of that. Windfall is something like post acting lifestyle, which is not an approach I see often. So I have to say that it stood out, for a number of reasons, and these characters were just it's good enough that um, when he came up with the short story collection that followed, I read and reviewed that, and it's like there were some short stories that I think didn't hit the mark as well as they could have, and that's just bound to happen once you have enough work, I suppose. But I really enjoyed the main feature of the collection. I kind of think the ending could have been tightened up a little, but again, it's like Tempe Okun is a solid writer and one I would strongly recommend you check out if you have not read any of his work. And the last one that I want to talk about is Royce Day, who I came across in part of the furry writing group that I'm in, the Friends of the Fireplace. And I don't remember exactly what got me to check out the Complete Red Vixen Adventures, but I think it was just part of my drive at the time to read more furry authors and give them some reviews, because I tend to think that, I mean, look on YouTube for like major releases, and there's probably like a billion people giving their opinion on any given book. But for like niche subjects like the furry fandom, I kind of have a feeling that people that have writing experience, like I think I do, people that have informed opinions that don't just say that they liked it or that they hated it, and really can give you some insight into bits and pieces. It's like I try and do all of my reviews spoiler free, or nothing that you wouldn't learn from reading the jacket or the first couple of chapters, to sort of give people an idea. It's like, this is something you should read, this is something I didn't like. And I mean, sometimes there are things that positive or negative that I have to discuss that involve spoilers, but I always use a spoiler tag so that you can skip past that part if you don't want to know. But if you do want to see the full video, you can just keep watching. But Royce Day, I started reading the Complete Red Vixen Adventures, and this was a big, thick tome. I should. It's like several inches thick. Two. Well, I guess it's only two, but anyway, still, it's a thick book. Kind of reminded me a little bit of mine. And it was, it's like apparently it started out as fan fiction that eventually got broken off into its own thing. And I had never read anything by this writer before, but I was interested to read the first one. And the more I read it, the more I kind of got absorbed into the series. And Royce probably can tell you nowadays that I bother him almost on a semi daily basis, just usually just fooling around, just kind of talking to him about the story, about what he's working on, about providing encouragement and stuff, because this is one of those things that it's like he says he doesn't plan, that he doesn't outline like I do, because I kind of map out just about every scene, almost just exactly where it's going to go. And he just kind of takes like two characters at a time and just sort of explores part of the universe and just tells the stories that come to him. And it's like I have to say that it is almost impossible for me to believe that this is not planned, because some of the moments that come up in the story, it's like they're just moments that you can't do without all the groundwork being laid. And it just has a very good thread through the whole series. The characters are enjoyable. He touches a lot of areas that I admittedly have been afraid to, or just haven't had the experience to really feel like I do it justice, and he does it well. Like characters that have, mental illness or have had really severe histories. It's like I have a hard time doing that to my characters, and maybe it's a weakness on my part. Maybe it would make for a stronger universe if I did. But there's just some things that I just have such a hard time doing, just because I mean, I can conceptualize people doing like really evil things, but I don't know. There's just some stuff that I just have a hard time bringing myself to do, or have had happen in my characters' histories, even if I don't write the scene myself. I don't know. Man, it's just kind of like I guess the style that I mean, I suppose it sort of points to my influence that Star Trek has influenced me a lot, because it's like I like all the characters being working together. I like most of the characters having a relatively like I mean, stuff happens, but not a horrible torturous life like some of these characters have. And I don't know, but to get back on topic, I'd say that Red Vixen Adventures, it's like it's a fun piece. I really enjoyed it. The characters have great senses of, the author has a great sense of humor. The characters are really endearing. It's like, and also I'd have to say that, this is a universe that, has a lot of noble characters, that has a lot of, and a noble, I mean, in terms of like the social class, not the characterization, although they are that as well in some cases. But typically, it's like I don't like stories involving the upper crust of society, because usually you end up getting a lot of characters that, don't appreciate the privilege that they've been given. And, I tend to think like that's a lot easier to have happen when you're in the upper crust of society, which is why a lot of my characters are people that have to work for a living, to be honest. But, Royce does a really good job of making them endearing. It's like I really enjoyed the entire series. I've really liked a lot of these characters. And, I have to say that, it's actually one of the universes that I was sad to finish the book, because, these 6 stories is just like, it was such a great experience going through all 6, that, it's like I was trying to stretch them out so that it would last as long as possible. And, although I still have a lot more of his work to read, it's just like, it's one of those things that all 6, I just enjoyed the work a lot, including the other stuff that I've read, and I'm sure I'll enjoy the other stuff further. I mean, I can say that it's like Royce is another one of those authors that I talk to a lot, that I think we're good friends, that that he's somebody that I like the characters enough to actually consider doing a fan fiction. Which is something that I don't do often. And, that's a topic for another day, because I don't want to bring anything down here. But, I will say that, it's like it's Red Vixen Adventures, more perhaps than most of the other people on this list, has really just kind of captured my attention. And again, I want to say that all 4 of the authors that I have highlighted are just absolutely stellar at what they do. And it's like you would be absolutely hard pressed not to check out their work. I mean, you would be doing yourself a disservice if you don't. And apparently I was talking long enough that the screensaver engaged, so that was kind of why I stopped for a second, which I'm gonna ultimately leave in the finished video, just because at first I was just like, oh god, is my computer exploding? But this is these people have gotten me, have been well enough that I've been talking for 20 minutes straight without actually moving my mouse or touching any of the controls. So but I guess I mean, there's so much stuff I could say about Royce that I could probably go on for forever for a video just on him. But I want to say, just to wrap it up, that it's Red Vixen Adventures is a great book. I highly recommend that you check it out. It's fun, it's endearing, and there's a lot of good stuff into it. It's like I don't want to just kind of be saying generalities, but it's like I really, really like that series, and I really look forward to the next great adventure whenever that happens to be. So, strongly, strongly recommend. But, to wrap it up, it's like I would say if you have a chance, make sure you pick up any of their works. Utunu, Kyell Gold, Tempe Okun, Royce Day. It's like they're 4 solid writers that I cannot recommend enough. So, be sure to check their work out. And, I hope that you enjoy their pieces as much as I do. If you like werewolves, check out my book Blue Moon, available in paperback and ebook on Amazon. Thanks for watching. If you liked it, click the subscribe button and leave a comment below. Catch you later.